Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Inspiring Thoughts podcast. We're very, very lucky today to have Jake Naudé with us from stressedexecutive.com. And there's Jake there with the welcome already. So, Jake, it's great to have you on board. Welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, really chuffed. And it was nice through one of our colleagues we've had on the podcast already, Maria Wilson, I think, puts in contact with each other. So thank you for Maria when she listens to this as well. So I really appreciate it.
Cool. I'll tell her in the morning when I see her.
Yes. Oh, you're seeing her tomorrow?
I am, yeah.
Oh, lovely, lovely. So on today, Jake, would you just share with people your career history, how you've got to where you are today? Because that'd be lovely to know.
Yes. In a nutshell, my career started back in Zimbabwe. I went to agricultural college. I went to join the family farm, came to the UK, went into the corporate world, got involved with Transport for London back in 98, started as an IT techie, then became a trainer, then got into project management, did that for a number of years. I spent 23 years in the corporate world before I took my exit and got into hypnotherapy, where I am now.
Which is wonderful. And I've been excited all day to find out more about hypnotherapy. So I'm going to hold myself back because I've got a kind of questions later. So if we dive into them, first of all, what brought you to support people that are stressed? So I know that you're looking to stress into success, but what brought you to that world?
So my own journey, to cut a long story short, towards the tail end of those 23 years in the corporate world, I'd climbed the kind of corporate ladder, got bigger and bigger projects. Stress followed me all the way up the ladder. And at some point, stress caught up with me and overtook and completely knocked me off my feet. I got to the point where I thought I was going nuts. I couldn't think properly. I was on the verge of completely breaking my family. My wife and daughter sat me down and had a very stern heart-to-heart with me and said, something's got to give.
Yeah.
So that's the point for me to reevaluate. Yeah. And at that point, I had always chased the money. When I came to London in 98, I thought, what's the thing that I can do that can earn the most money per hour? And a short computer course got me back then it was like £15 an hour. It was like insane. Yeah. But I was always chasing the money. I turned up here a farmer and got into IT. They're as far removed from each other as you can get. But this stress point in my life was an opportunity for me to reset and, reevaluate my kind of priorities and chase something that I was passionate about. And that's where hypnotherapy really surfaced, because I've always had an interest in that. Yeah. And my very supporting wife and daughter gave me the time I needed to go through the study, to make the transition. And the rest is history, I suppose. Yeah. It was my own fall from grace, if you like, that got me to this point. And now I'm serving the people that I used to be.
Yeah. And isn't it nice that your wife and your daughter had the confidence or that to sit you down and go, hang on a minute, husband, dad, you need to have a chat about this. I mean, that takes a lot of strength, doesn't it?
It does. And, for me, there are two kind of poignant moments in that little scenarios. First of all, at the confrontation point, I was so close to saying, well, I'm off. Really? I'm doing this all for you. Yeah. Don't you realize that? Yeah. And it wasn't, I'd lost my way long down the road. I'd lost my way, and I was doing it for me, not for them, right? They didn't want any of the stuff. So that was the one moment, was just, being able to pause long enough to not hit the eject button, right? That was one kind of very poignant moment, which changed everything. And then, just their love and kindness in two ways: to kind of raise the issue in the first place, and then to give me the room I needed.
Yes.
And, I've gone on, from my part, I've gone on to fix all the broken bits. Good. And today, they're not walking on eggshells around me anymore. Yeah. It's a very different setup now at home.
Yeah. And it's that bit of being in that kind of, and more about stress than I do. I can only go from when I worked in the banking industry along that bit, but I knew stress as my level, that I was constantly, my body was full of cortisol all the time, on that edge, and mine was chasing the money. It was that kind of bit of, but it was that was the culture of, you've got to talk about bonuses, you've got to talk about sales, you've got to, that kind of stuff. And until I come out I then went, that's not actually what I enjoyed doing.
Mm.
And that wasn't me. So I can't walk in your shoes, but I can kind of understand where you've gone through.
It's the same journey.
Yeah.
You were in a world, in an impersonal pressure world where unreasonable things were expected of you.
Yeah.
And you were probably your own worst enemy too, because you put yourself on that journey. You went there because of what you decided your goals to be. And I did the same thing. I chased the money. I made the sacrifices that I did. I was in the same place where there were deadlines, there were demands, there were pressures. And every time I made a compromise, I was compromising myself for the company. And I lost myself years back. I lost myself, and I was just on autopilot. I was just bringing in the beer coupons every month, bringing in the beer coupons, and I'd forgotten even why I was doing it a long time ago. But I did. I lost myself, and it's a real blessing to have had that opportunity to reevaluate.
Well, I remember seeing a quote today on LinkedIn, and I paraphrase. So if I get this wrong, apologize. But it was something about in 20 years' time, who's going to remember you working those long hours and that time? And then down the bottom it says your family will. Yes. And it was one of those ones. I thought it was quite a stark contrast of just talking now of that company's not going to think about you in 20 years' time, but your family will be, won't they?
Absolutely. I used to get up at 4 o'clock every morning to get on the train to go to London.
Yeah.
It took me 2 hours to get in, and I was there at 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I would get home at about 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
And I'd have an hour or two before my daughter went to bed, and that was it. I'd leave the house before they've woken up.
Yeah.
See them for 1 hour.
Yeah.
Or maybe 2 hours in the day. No quality time there at all.
Yes.
And it's very different today. Today I work from home.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm still up before everybody else, but my things are done by the time they wake up, and I can spend time with both of them before the day starts. And 5 o'clock comes, and I'm here. And it's just repairing all the broken things, and it's a lovely thing to be. I'm
just thinking now, Jake, in my mind of them saying, "Dad, you're home too often now. Can you go to work?"
Yes, and it's a challenge, being away from home so much to suddenly being at home so much. And my daughter's at school most of the time, so it's my wife and I, and we've had to find a new way to be together because we never were together that long. But it's a very busy day. I'm got my door closed for most of the day, but I'm popping in and out all the time. We're interacting.
No, it's a nice thing to have. And with the clients that you work with, not to delve too much into it, but how do you support colleagues? I know you talked about hypnotherapy, but how do you support colleagues at heightened stress levels? And I know you work with a lot of executives, but how do you kind of support those colleagues?
Yes, so friends and colleagues, it's a little bit more informal. They're not paying me. I'm just offering advice. So, what we'll do is we'll sit down. We'll very quickly get to the bottom of the specific trouble that they're having. And then very often there's a tool or two that we can give them and say, listen, think about it like this, do that, go away and come back and tell me how you're doing, and we'll tweak it and refine. So very often it's just a short, sharp, quick chat, chuck a tool in there, make sure they're comfortable with it, and off they go. Because, for a lot of people, we get in our own way in a very specific way, and it's really not that hard to do something, to just step out of your way for a while, to just get off the hamster wheel just long enough, catch your breath, and then you go off again without any further support.
And how do you usually see with people coming back to you? What do you notice in their behavior or anything when they come back?
So very often it's a very, very big difference. And there's a great deal of awe and surprise that such a simple little thing could have made such a big difference. And in a lot of the work that I do with people, even with my clients, we don't turn their worlds upside down and rearrange massive things. We do small things often. We take those little half a degree turns. So we're never breaking a sweat, but we just consciously, deliberately, always making those little half a degree turns. And, the whole world changes. You can miss your iceberg if you make your half a degree turn early enough, an hour or two before. You're not even going to touch that thing.
And do you know what? It's really, really nice to hear, because a lot of people think the world of even like coaching, the world of stress management, it's big things, and it's not.
Yeah,
They're small degrees that just kind of tapping into that person, just a slight adjustment, and the new course they go on makes a world of difference, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And you know, it's the collection of the little things.
Yes.
It's the collection of the little things. And my wife and I went on a little health journey a few years ago, and we were looking for a silver bullet to fix this thing, right?
Yeah.
We quickly realized, look, there is no silver bullet. It's a collection of little things you can do for your health.
Yeah.
And, you know, your mental health, your body, your being is exactly the same. It's just a collection of lots of little things. It's not big stuff. There's no rocket science involved. It's, it's amazing.
Well, it was one of those ones of my personal journey. A couple of years back was about, someone recommended to me to read, because I'd always been a big goal person, very goal focused, etc. But once I got there, it was like a letdown. I was like, oh, what next?
What now?
And it was like the kind of dopamine hits to get there. When I was getting there was the excitement. Then when I got there, I was like, oh, that felt like the blues to me. And then someone recommended me, I think most people have heard of it, Atomic Habits by James Clear. And it was about daily behaviors, celebrating those and work on those small 1 percentile.
It's the journey, right?
And that's the bit where now I love it, because I'm not getting to a big goal whereas I go each day, that's my behaviors, these are what I'm trying to do or achieve. But it's made the world of difference. And also the people I coach now, rather than the big audacious goals, it's actually that daily behaviors. How can we get them there? If that makes sense.
100% right. So something I encourage my clients to do is on the very, very similar lines. I get them to visualize their life as a pie chart.
Yeah.
A pie chart that can't get bigger or smaller, right? Fixed in size. And what you do with your day is your slices in there.
Yeah.
And you'll have a big work slice, you'll have a big sleep slice, and then you'll have your wife will be in there, your kids will be in there, your colleagues, your family, whatever.
Yeah.
Some of those slices will be sunshine slices, right? Things you're looking forward to, and your goals will be in there too.
Yeah.
Things you're looking forward to. And I get them every day to spend just 5 minutes. You know, they draw this chart, they stick it on the wall, and they just spend 5 minutes every day ignoring the dark clouds, the work, and the stuff, just thinking about their sunshine slices, thinking, what one small thing can I do today to make any one of these slices a little bit bigger?
Yes.
And as your sunshine slices increase, they squeeze the dark ones out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, what that does is exactly what you say. It encourages them to focus on everything today along their journey.
Yes. Yeah.
And their goals, they're not stressing about the goals. The goals that are in there, they're just imagining what it will feel like when they get there.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very much as well, it's about today, it's about the journey, it's about getting your dopamine from all the little things, not getting disappointed at the end when you suddenly get that birth and then there's nothing left.
And it's that bit as well. So even me personally, that my wife would say to me, I'm a destination person, not a journey person. I want to get there as quick as effective, those kind of things. And then I was on a course many, many years ago about being in the present. So that present moment and enjoying it and I suddenly realized that probably I'm missing out, because I was always looking at what's next, how quick can I get somewhere, what can I do, rather than enjoy that present. And I really love that simplicity of using that pie chart, but your sunshine moments actually within that day, and how can you make it bigger and look forward to it. That's a very refreshing, simplistic approach though, isn't it? But yet rewarding.
Absolutely. And it just helps people to be present, because when you are present, that's where everything happens, The past, you've got feelings from the past, you've got feelings about how you're imagining the future, but all you've really got is right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, if you're thinking, worried about the past and the future, you miss what's important.
Yeah.
And this little, to have that part of your daily routine, to just spend 5 minutes thinking about the little slices, not just thinking about the little slices, but you're thinking, and what else? What new little slice can I wedge in there?
Yeah.
And when I did this exercise, when I had my moment, when I did this exercise, my pie was way out of proportion.
Yeah.
And it's taken a really long time to get the sunshine slices to outweigh the other stuff.
Yes.
But it's an evolution. It's a practice, but it really does help to focus, to keep you in the moment, and to focus what for you is important.
Yeah. And it's even the terminology, isn't it? Like sunshine slices, it makes you feel good, doesn't it?
It does. And
you go, oh, that's quite, the sunshine's nice, especially at the moment. It's terrible weather, but it just makes you feel good. Like sun. Yeah, it's just a very simplistic way, but a nice play on words, isn't it?
And there's a little bit more to sprinkle on that. When you're doing this little routine, when you're thinking of your kind of sunshine slice pie, all the good bits you're thinking of are your own. Yeah. They're all positive. They're all things that you want. And then all your thinking all the time is on the things that you want and how those things are going to feel once you have them. Yeah. And then you're automatically moving away without even trying. You're automatically moving away from the stuff that's uncomfortable by moving towards the thing that you do want. And your body gives you the motivation you need to do that stuff when your mind's in that space.
Yeah. Now I'm dying to know about hypnotherapy. So I'm dying. I'm going to jump in there now. Can you just tell us more about hypnotherapy, how it works, what you've learned? I'm just going to do it as a bit of an open chat because I find it. I'd like to, be a bit nosy and find out.
Yes. So hypnotherapy is hypnosis and therapy. It's a combination of the two. And there are a lot of different forms of hypnosis that can be used. So the form that I use is called solution-focused hypnotherapy. So it's a forward-looking, positive thing, and we don't go digging up bones from the past. So we get somebody to feel differently about today by getting excited about tomorrow. We get them to start moving towards the things that they do want, and then automatically everything else is in their rearview mirror, right? So that's the solution-focused approach. And then we use the hypno part of it, is we engage trance. Yeah. We engage a trance state. So you have an intellectual mind, you have a subconscious mind, and you've got this like doorman in between the two that's, managing the flow of information between the two. We get the intellectual mind to step aside. We get the doorman to step aside. You go into the subconscious mind, and then that's where we do under trance, the kind of subconscious change work, which is 95% of you anyway is on autopilot, right? So a large chunk of the change is done in there. And then the therapy is, a bit of talking therapy, a bit of CBT, a bit of NLP, the hand-picked best bits from a range of methodologies out there. We've got all the big hitting tools from the various methodologies in one place. And then over a number of weeks, we do that. Kind of half the session we're talking and doing tools, and half the session we're doing the relaxing subconscious change work.
And the bit there, I would only know from seeing hypnotherapy on TV and things like that, which I don't probably could say staged but what happens then? Someone going into a trance, what would they be experiencing, or what would be generally happening, Jake?
First, let me address the Derren Brown thing, the stage thing, because those guys are entertainers.
Yes,
These are the same tools that I use, but they use smoke and mirrors to give the illusion that they hold that power,
right?
That they have the ability to do that. And in reality, all they're doing is they're at a show where a whole bunch of people have expected to come to see this stuff, and they get a range of volunteers to come up who are expecting to make a spectacle of themselves, and then they have like 20 people in there. They test them and chuck a whole bunch out and get left with a handful that know they're going to make a fool of themselves. And when they go under trance, they are open to foolish suggestions, right? Because that's their expectation. And then the hypnotherapist or the hypnotist makes it look like they're doing it,
right?
So that's them. But the reality is that no one person can actually even hypnotize another.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't, and nobody has the ability to hypnotize somebody else. But what we can do is we can very, very effectively guide someone, and that's exactly what they're doing too. We can guide someone to hypnotize themselves. So the first thing to note is all hypnosis is self-hypnosis.
Right.
That's why self-hypnosis recordings work when the hypnotherapist is nowhere near you.
Yes, yeah.
It's just something you relaxing yourself into a daydream-like state.
Yeah.
You don't feel funny pins and needles. You don't lose control. When I'm hypnotizing somebody over Zoom, or when I'm guiding someone over Zoom or in person, they remain completely in control. They hear absolutely everything. They have the ability to open their eyes and do anything when they need to. Sometimes they fall asleep. But they haven't lost control. They've just got so relaxed they fall asleep. So what we do with people like that, we just get them to sit up a little bit more uncomfortably next time. But kind of what's happening under the hood, what's happening is we have this intellectual mind, you have your emotional mind, the limbic system, and we have this critical faculty, this dormant in between the two. And 5% of what we do is conscious. We're aware of 5% of what we do. 95% is on autopilot, right? That's your subconscious. So when we get somebody to relax themselves into trance, what they're essentially doing is they're allowing that critical faculty, the dormant of the mind, to just step aside a little bit. And to blur the lines between the conscious and the subconscious. And then they allow information to flow. And the other thing we do is we don't give any kind of hard, direct suggestions to the subconscious mind, because it knows best. Somebody says to me they've got a problem, and I try and give their subconscious mind my instructions. I'm likely to do something that their subconscious mind doesn't have planned for them anyway. So when we get a client into hypnosis, we get them to relax for long enough for the magic to happen, kind of all by itself.
Good.
And and because I'm not in there with them. I can't go snooping around anywhere where I shouldn't be, because I'm not even in there. And that helps people to relax, to just know that, look, they just daydreaming themselves into a relaxed state where the magic will happen.
And to get them into that state, is that not to show today anything, but is that a tool you use, or is it words you use to get them into that state?
So it's a combination of things, and it'll vary from client to client. But very often it involves speaking in a certain way, having some music, using a certain combination of words in a certain way. I follow the Ericksonian hypnosis principles. So it's really just using words and tone in a certain way. And you can do it conversationally. You can get somebody to the point of being hypnotized and they didn't even realize that that's where they're at. Or you can do look up at the spot at the wall and, you close your eyes, you're getting more relaxed. There's a range of things. Progressive muscle relaxation is the thing we use most often on Zoom. But there's various ways. It's a state of focus. So there's lots of different ways you can get person to the focus, to the point where they're excluding everything else and just able to get into that nice state.
And it was just to follow on there where you said about Zoom as well. As you said, it works on Zoom, face to face, those kind of things as well.
Absolutely. So it works incredibly well on Zoom, and it works particularly well for people who have any kind of stress about going out, or if somebody has stress about traffic, or stress about meeting new people, or stress about being in someone else's home or something. For those people, Zoom is perfect, because they're in their own home, they're in their comfortable space, so they turn up nice and relaxed. For people who don't appreciate Zoom, for people who don't like technology, for people who Zoom makes them uncomfortable, in person's better for them. But it does work, because people are doing it to themselves. And I tell people I'll be their sat nav. But they've got to drive the car. They're hypnotizing themselves. So in person or on Zoom, it just works very, very well.
And how many sessions would somebody usually have, or hypnotherapy, how many sessions would they usually have to see a difference from their stress management point of view? How many sessions would they see, Jake?
So a stress executive, I do an 8-session package.
Right.
But not everybody completes their 8 sessions, because the magic happens early. They're busy. They want to get back to work. So 5.3 is the average number of sessions.
That's very precise.
I keep records, and that little number interests me.
Yeah.
So, 5.3 is the average.
Yeah.
For those who don't finish their sessions, that's on hold.
Yes,
they can always come back for it. They can always come back for a little booster.
Yeah.
But it very, very much depends on who you are, on your intention, on your beliefs, on your willingness, and then what's going on, and what else is going on.
Yeah.
So if you could draw an average, and you can't really. But for many of my clients, the first thing we'll do is we'll get the stress bucket down.
Yes, yeah.
We'll remove a lot of the excess adrenaline and cortisol in the body to give them a fair start.
Yeah.
Because, while the stress levels are high, you're in survival mode, your senses are heightening, everything's a threat, you're kind of fighting against yourself. So we get that down first, and that usually happens very, very quickly. But then kind of 2 or 3 sessions, they so much more relaxed that we can then get on to doing meaningful work.
And
quite often we've got to get the stress out the way first.
And like there about the stress bucket, to reduce it down before you can actually go forward. Otherwise it's another layer adding on top of a layer.
Doing things in the right order. It's so important to do your fact finding up front, establish what the person's thing is, what their wishes are, lay out a kind of timeline, talk them through what's happening, and then kind of stick to that, because people like to walk before they can run. But you're just going to trip yourself up or not even get there. There is an order to do things, and if you do this in the right order, it's so simple, so straightforward. It just works so well.
And what would you say is a kind of typical client that would come to see you, not to break confidentiality or anything like that, but what would be a typical client that would come and see you, Jake, for kind of help with a certain part of stress management?
So it's senior execs.
Yeah.
Senior execs in the corporate world that are really, really, really struggling. They don't always know why.
Yeah.
For most of them, stress is at the root of their thing, whatever their thing is. But very often, so senior execs, and they'll turn up, a lot of people turn up completely upside down. They'll turn up in various states.
Yeah.
And what's very, very common is they'll turn up and they say to me, Jake, this is what's wrong with me, or these 4 things is what's wrong with me. And those are the things that are upsetting them the most, the things that they're aware of. And in most cases where stress is involved and we do a little chat, it's very, very quick to see that it's not actually those things that are the problem. It's just the fact that your stress bucket is absolutely full. You've got no capacity. So whatever you put in there is going to make it overflow, right? It's going to give you that reaction. So for a lot of people, just getting the bucket down beyond overflow point, just getting the stress level down, suddenly everything goes away. Still stressed in the beginning, but you're not overflowing, you're not overwhelmed, you're not having those extreme adverse and physical reactions. But keep getting the bucket down. The lower the bucket gets, the more capacity you have to cope, more energy, positivity, motivation you have. But executives that are the person that I used to be, people who take too much on in this world where cowboys don't cry, where you don't complain about overtime or overwork, and they just don't know how to empty their stress bucket. So they're putting in more than they
And the part there is they not get used. I don't mean like it, but they get used to that way.
They do
on that treadmill. Keep going, and the bit to get to that level, they would have been good at their jobs and their roles to get to that level, but then it's a whole different kind of pressure, kind of that bubble, that boiling pot. Then, isn't it? It's a whole different game, isn't it?
So interesting that people get used to it, because they do. And it becomes almost an addiction. Your brain gets used to a certain chemical cocktail, certain amount of adrenaline, certain amount of cortisol, just a little splash of serotonin and dopamine. But that chemical cocktail, you feel stress when it's rising.
Yeah.
And then very quickly you acclimatize, and then that new level becomes your new normal.
Yes. Yeah.
And then
yeah.
life will happen. You'll respond negatively to life, and you get more adrenaline and cortisol, and then it'll settle, and then that will become your new normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it goes up. And so if you're anywhere too long, that becomes your new normal. And for a lot of people that come to see me, their stress bucket is full. I mean, they're like operating at 98%. They've got like 2% capacity, and they've been there for years.
Yeah.
And the interesting and unfortunate thing that happens, right, when you've been operating like that, first of all, I mean, you're absolutely depleted energy-wise and stuff for all that time. But if you then try to help yourself by changing that level, your body sees something's wrong. You know, this chemical composition is wrong, and you'll do something to sabotage yourself to get you back. You get into that rut where your body thinks certain amount of stress, certain amount of adrenaline and cortisol, that equals normal.
Yes.
So whenever you're helping yourself, it says, get back to there.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people turn up. And they've been operating with 2% capacity for so long.
Yeah. And it's the part when I left the bank after 26 years, all of a sudden, and you know, like which you've explained now about stress levels dropping or your body. So I literally had a headache for 5-6 weeks when I went to the doctors, and they said no, it's fine, it's what you're going through. So it was kind of like withdrawal symptoms in a way of the body going through that part. But I'd been working at a certain level for so long. The change in that, now what you've said to me kind of makes perfect sense.
Absolutely. You know, in the beginning, your body's fighting you. You're fighting against your own body.
Yeah.
And you're fighting against your 95% subconscious machine. You lower it, it kicks it back. You lower it, it takes a little bit of work to get it to a new place, and then to hold it there just long enough for that to become your new normal.
Yes,
And then you adjust. And your body gives you headaches because it says something wrong here. We shouldn't be, you know, something's wrong. But it takes a little while. And at some point, the alarm bell turns off. At some point, you move from your stress system into your rest and digest system, and it all just gets easier. But you know, a lot of people that turn up here are fighting with themselves in the beginning to get out of that exact rut. And the other thing, just quickly while we're here, because it's so closely related, that a lot of people, when they turn up here, their capacity is so diminished, so far from the person that they used to be. And, you know, they come here thinking that they lost, broken, and losing their mind. And that's exactly where I was. You know, I found myself in a position where it was really hard to think, really hard to make simple decisions, making ridiculous decisions, and, you know, finding myself doing stupid things that I just could not understand. And the simple explanation for that, and the relief people get when they figure out how the brain works, is when the stress bucket is full, the fuller it is, the less intellectual access you have, because you're in this emotional limbic system. You know, the more stress there is, the more you're in this automatic, negative, irrational place. And the lower the stress bucket gets, the fewer adrenaline and cortisol hormones you have in your body, the more intellectual capacity you get back. So a lot of people turn up feeling broken and like they're going nuts, and then they're quite relieved to find out that actually that's how your body should be responding like that. It's normal.
And it's not seeking solace, but it's the realization moment of, okay, that's okay, that's normal. Because that's the bit where people, when they're it's out of line between their body and mind, that they can't see, you know, the phrase "the wood through the trees," that they can't see what's going on. Whereas actually getting them to their stress bucket down to go, oh, actually that's how it was, and this is how they can then visualize better, can't they?
Absolutely. And this is something I strive to give people in the discovery session. So the discovery session, someone turns up for free, 50-minute Zoom or in person, and they come and they say, you know, what's going on with them, what their hopes and desires are. And then I explain to them, a good chunk of the session goes to taking their symptoms and their responses to life and explaining to them under the hood why that's happening, how that's happening, what the solution looks like. And the penny drops, and then the relief comes in when they realize, you know, the moment they realize that, okay, I'm not going nuts. This is normal.
Yes.
It's shitty, but it's normal.
Yeah.
And it will go. All I got to do is get the stress levels down. Nothing's broken. Nothing needs to be fixed. I just need to bring my stress levels down, and then I'll get my intellectual capacity back, my energy, my motivation, my positivity, my sleep.
Yes.
It's a lovely moment when people realize that. And that's when they say, you know, where do I sign?
Yeah.
I want some of that.
Yeah. And that's a fabulous moment when I call it a light bulb moment, that moment of truth when someone goes, I want some of that because I can see the benefit to it, and what you're saying is making sense. I can relate to it, those kind of things, that is absolutely wonderful.
And we never think about it in those terms when we're in the middle of it.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's lovely for somebody else to just point that out. Yeah.
Well, it's also, as human beings, we can be very self-critical, can't we? And actually, sometimes I think the old phrase I like is I think something like children don't overcomplicate things, adults do. And it's that phrase, as an adult, you go, that's too simplistic. It can't work. Whereas if you was a child, you'd just believe in it, wouldn't it? And I think that crossover between back from an adult to a child to go, no, this is good.
Yeah.
Enjoy it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So, Jake, what would you say is kind of how clients, what the benefits they see when they come out? What's the kind of, not to break confidentiality, but what do clients usually feel or see, or when they've gone through and I'm going to always remember it in my mind, the 5.3 sessions, what are they going to feel like, or what would the difference you see?
Yes. So if you consider the way they turn up first, and most people, by the time they're phoning me, they're absolutely desperate.
Yes.
So in one way or another, their life is completely upside down.
Yeah.
And mostly it's at work. Almost always it spills over into relationships.
Yeah.
Very, very often it spills into physical symptoms as well.
Yeah.
And you know, you've got a range of nasty symptoms that people are experiencing when they turn up.
Yeah.
But very, very quickly, you know, as soon as we get that stress level down to the point where we're not overflowing anymore, still overwhelmed, but getting lower and lower and lower.
Yeah.
The lower it gets, the more they get to their positivity, their energy, their motivation, sleep returns. And then that ripples out into work and personal life.
Yeah.
So, you know, the benefits of, you know, if you have to sum them up, it's positivity, energy, motivation, sleep.
Yeah.
It's relationships improving, it's things easing up at work, and I suppose a really, really big thing is their capacity returns too.
Yeah.
And the capacity is usually the thing that's eluded them for so long.
Yes.
And then their ability to now use their intellectual mind easily again, to have capacity to cope with stuff without overflowing.
Yeah.
And then another lovely benefit is energy.
Yeah.
So when you're in stress mode, when you're in survival mode, the process your brain goes through is it says, you know, there must be danger out there with these levels of adrenaline, cortisol, must be danger. So therefore, except for the heart and the head, all the rest of the body, please lend me some of your energy because the muscles need it.
Yeah.
And, you know, when we sleep at night, rapid eye movement drains stress from your body.
Yeah.
And then our negative thinking fills the bucket up again.
Yeah.
And we're sleeping and filling. So for a lot of people, for years, they've been up in this area, right?
Yeah.
The alarm bell's been on. They've been in survival mode for years.
Yeah.
They've been depleted of energy all over their body for years.
Yeah.
But as soon as the stress levels come down, the body sees, okay, whatever danger that was, that's past. Give the energy back to your memory, back to your immune system, back to everything. And then they get this amazing energy back, and all kinds of things, little niggles that they struggle with suddenly become okay because they're, you know, properly energized again.
Yeah. But it's nicely where you've put there actually like the head and the heart, etc., muscles dragging from the rest of the body. It makes a bit common sense, doesn't it? But now you've said it, I'm like, that's actually you could just see it, can't you? The rest of your body pulling in to make sure the others work.
Absolutely. And it kind of boggles the mind a little bit, because you think the way the body's designed to work is in an extreme situation, it will stop digesting completely for a period of time. It will remove energy from everywhere in an extreme way for a short period of time, because, you know, for a moment, your muscles need everything they can get.
Yeah.
But then the danger passes and the muscles, you know, everything goes back. You get your digestion back and stuff. But in today's world, we often get ourselves so stressed, we keep ourselves in that state, and then that condition becomes chronic. We're not designed to do. We're only designed to do that in short bursts.
Yes, yeah.
So when people get that back, the kind of impact is very, very real and significant for them.
And people always ask us, Jake, as a separate part, what personal development or are you working on this year in 2023?
So I'm busy with 3 very exciting things.
Yeah.
So one thing is I've bumped into a LinkedIn guy. We've got this lovely relationship, and he's formed a company. I can't tell you what the name of that company is yet. He's in some of the very big London corporates, with his own people helping angle.
Yeah.
But he's opening that up to bring specialists in.
Oh, wow.
And he's bringing me in as a stress and anxiety guy, and he's bringing in a whole lot of specialists next to him. And within the next few months, we'll be up and running.
Oh, wow.
We'll be going into big London corporates on a day rate, helping them, leadership team, and the people who work there too, with their issues. So that's a very, very exciting thing that's around the corner. I've got this 8-week package that I currently have, but that's Zoom or in person. I'm busy digitizing that so that it's more generic and downloadable at a fraction of the price.
Yeah.
So busy working on that now. That'll be ready for release and download early in 24.
Yeah.
And study-wise, I've always got a little study something going. I'm busy doing tweaking and building on my group hypno skills.
Yeah.
So that I can take what I do beyond the individual, beyond the CEO and the leadership team to the wider corporate world or business.
Yeah. So you're having a busy year, Jake.
Always busy.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Like we were talking when we were off air. I say to people, I'm busy. And automatically people think it's a negative. They go, oh, poor you. And I go, no, it's good busy. I'm really enjoying myself. I'm having a time of my life. The journey's fantastic. It's good busy.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
It does. And, I've got to keep an eye on myself because I can get carried away.
Yeah.
I can get carried away. So I've got my little bits and pieces that I do to absolutely keep myself in check and to make sure that, yes, it is a good busy. And I've got my boundaries.
Yes.
And my goals, my kind of achievement dates are set far enough forward to just give me enough room to get through. But it's a beautiful busy, and helping people along the way is just such a lovely thing.
It's a good feeling, isn't it?
It surely is, yeah.
And Jake, as we come to the end of our podcast today, how can people connect with you? How can people talk to you? Those kind of things. What's the best way to get contact with you?
So they can pick up the phone. 078 3030 4464, or they can go to stressedexecutive.com, and they can look for an orange button somewhere, click that, and book themselves a discovery call. At the moment, I'm not taking on new clients. I am at capacity. So anybody wanting to book a discovery call, they could opt to join a waiting list. And as soon as something would be available, I get hold of them. But they can also look for me on LinkedIn. So Jake Naudé on LinkedIn. And I tend to post 3 short videos. Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, I post a little video each day. And then that's my kind of social contribution.
Yeah. Well, that's the bit with me. We concentrate on LinkedIn rather than multiple social, because otherwise we'll be doing that all day, if that makes sense. Whereas LinkedIn works for us, and it works very well using that profile.
Absolutely. And I was on Instagram, Facebook business page. I've just turned all of that noise off deliberately and consciously to keep my notifications at a manageable level. Yeah. And LinkedIn is where my clients are. Yeah. And that's that's the only place I need to be.
Yeah, correct. So can I just say a huge thank you today? First of all, Jake, I've learned a lot. So being selfish there for kind of the rest of our audience. Also to say thank you for Maria connecting us as well from the podcast as well. But can I just say a huge thank you for joining the call today? I really, really appreciate it. You've been a wonderful guest. And I'm sure our paths
the opportunity to be here.
Yeah. And I'm sure our paths will cross in the future as well.
I'm sure they will.
Cool. Thank you very so much, Jake.
Thanks a million, Stephen. Cheers.